and I'm not having trouble with this one. But also there are now, because of that, I guess, or at least the reputation of that, some aftermarket stocks that are supposedly excellent, and even an aftermarket lower. So you can, there's much more out there than when I bought this, that you can upgrade it, I guess, quote unquote, and make it your rifle. Yeah, I think you can get a metal lower instead of the polymer. And I believe the stocks that are available, which is what I would do, probably, or will do, possibly, we'll talk about that, is add a stock that gives me more length, because that's one of the negatives I have with it. But the rifle has been utterly reliable. We'll probably have malfunctions today, even though we're not going to shoot it 1,000 times. But I don't recall any malfunction. I'll have to think about it. I don't recall any. You know, we've got several videos on it. There may be one in a video. I'm not trying to hide it, but I don't remember any. And any magazine I've picked up, and I guess about half of them I've not even used, but they've all seemed to work without any trouble. We did a video with the 4-power Trigicon, the ACOG on it. You may have seen that video. And I think it worked fine with that. I took it off. I haven't had it on there for a while, but that was one thing I had on it. And so in terms of my experience with it, it's been pretty positive. I had this muzzle brake off for a while because, wow, it's a serious muzzle brake. And it gives you some blast. It gives John some blast when he's filming. But I put a different one on for a while, and I put it back on not too long ago. So, okay, if it's going to be a scar, we'll leave it a scar, you know, 17. And that's what it's supposed to be. You know, it's kind of lightweight. Again, it's not very heavy, and for its weight, it doesn't recoil as much as, you know, you would think it ought to. But now, if you pick up a really heavy AR-10, you might, and shoot it, and we've had a couple of those here, they might have less recoil impulse than this does, even though for the weight, it's you know, it's pretty mild, I'd have to say. Let me shoot a little more. Okay. I haven't shot this much lately. FN, as I say often, and as I do for other companies, they don't make junk. They typically work whatever they make. Okay, let's put a couple on this paper target. Get my ears in tight. Woo! So I was holding right on the, uh-oh, I hit that metal stand behind it, I think. I was holding right on the red. I'm going to hold above it. There we go. And let's hit that pot down there. Ah. Oh, here's one right here. Nice. Smoke a little pot. Smoke a little too. Pow, she's empty. Yep, she just cranks right on, no doubt about it. Lots of rails, you can hang all kinds of things on there, of course. And you know, you got your reversible bolt handle there. It's you know, totally ambidextrous, you know, pretty much. And you know, modular. It's supposed to be cat's meow when it comes to a modular modern battle rifle or combat assault rifle, right? So it's a gun that many of you, well, many of you have actually fired them, but a lot of you probably wish you had a chance to fire one, you know, because they're still in demand. I know a while back it seemed like I read somewhere there was kind of a shortage of them. People were trying to get them but couldn't, and were having to pay, you know, a higher dollar for them than they really should have, and that sort. I don't know if that's still the case. I have looked around. It's been a few weeks, I think, but it appears they're still selling for around $3,000. Okay, so price-wise, they're still up there. They're not down to $2,000 or $1,500. They're still basically a $3,000 firearm, maybe more, maybe a little less. So they're not inexpensive. They ain't cheap, but they're quite a rifle. And you know, any of these kinds of rifles in 308, you know, 7.62 by 51 tends to be expensive. Look at your AR-10s and look at the prices on most of them. Because of the pressure in that round, you're just not going to get that in a cheap rifle, generally speaking. So it's modern, it's fairly expensive, but it has been a good one. It has been a good one. It's accurate. It has a reputation for being accurate. It's easy to clean. It's got a nice folding stock. There's aftermarket stuff for it. It's been a great shooter. You know, it really has. Now, that said, there are negatives for me. And one of them is the fact that the stock, it comes out, but it doesn't come out quite enough for me. It's, you know, it just doesn't. I think it's kind of stiff. This thing is almost like new. I haven't shot it a lot, yeah. I really haven't. Even all the way out, it's okay, but I would like a little more length. I really would. So the stock is a little short for me. That's one negative. The blast, that's a negative, I have to say. And really, some of the AR-10s that I have fired lately, the John has, and I guess a couple other we have had in here, since firing those, I have come to realize that this has a little more recoil impulse than I initially thought. Okay, because when I first shot this, I think John and I both were just, wow, where's the recoil? This is a 308, you know. But really compared with heavier AR-10s, it's noticeable that it does have a little more recoil. So anyway, some people hate it, some people love it. It's just one of those kinds of firearms. It's not a bad looking firearm. What else do I think about it? My experience. Well, I still kind of like it. I don't love it. I've got some other guns on the table I'm going to talk about in just a quick comparison. I brought those out for a reason, and we'll talk about that. One thing I need to do, though, is let John give you his opinion on it, okay? Because, you know, I am just one person. I don't know if you've noticed that. So, John, why don't you tell him what you think about this crazy thing?
Thanks, Dad. Now, as you know, I used to be a Delta SEAL Ranger, and we used this gun almost exclusively in the Moon Wars, so I have a lot of experience with this rifle. So I was a smart choice to put in this video to talk about it. Now, I've shot this gun about as long as Dad has, I guess. So I'd never shot one before he picked one of these up. And I was always kind of attracted to the Scar, both the 17 and the 16, mostly because of the looks of it. I'd seen it in some movies and kind of drew my attention to it. And when I first got my hands on it, I was really impressed, like Dad said, with, you know, the way the recoil felt, and just this big old bolt sliding back and forth. You know, it just, and the polymer lower, it just had a lot of cool things going on with it, and very futuristic kind of feel to it. But since then, I've kind of cooled off on it a little bit. You know, I read some things about this stock breaking, with some people having experience with these stocks breaking and stuff, and you know, the more I thought about it, yeah, it's kind of flimsy, it's a little awkward to use, like this button's kind of hard to push, and at least on this one, maybe because it's so new, it doesn't want to, well, it did there, but sometimes it doesn't want to lock out. So the stock is a little wonky to me. For such a nice and expensive gun, the stock feels like a weak point to me. The length of it I'm okay with. Dad said it didn't come out long enough for him. I'm okay with that, but it does seem like they could have made it a little more adjustable. You know, it goes 1 to 6. They could have had a 7 on there easily, for sure. The blast of this gun, like Dad mentioned, as the videographer, I have a different perspective of that, for sure. And this is not a reason not to buy a gun like this, but the brake that comes on this thing has a wicked amount of blast. And if you watch some of the old Scar videos, you may see that I back up and kind of zoom in sometimes to try to get a shot of this thing. Or if I'm up close, the camera shakes a little bit, because it's brutal. If you're standing next to someone shooting one of these things, it's one of the most brutal muzzle brakes, other than like shooting a Barrett or something like that. I mean, it's absolutely brutal. But that is part of what helps it keep the recoil under control for such a light gun. So that's kind of what you get with this gun. It's part of the advantage of it, I guess, is that it's light, but the recoil is not too bad. But with an AR-10, like Dad said, a little bit heavier, you know, they're even smoother to shoot, I feel like. So with the price in mind, and the fact that these guns are kind of unusual, and they, you know, they're not the AR platform like we're familiar with, you know, I would kind of look elsewhere for a 308, but it's still a neat gun. Okay, let me shoot it now that I'm done blabbing about it. All right. Having this big charging handle up there on the left, of course you can put it on either side, is kind of nice, I have to say. Okay, let's try the red plate on the left. See if I can remember my Delta SEALs Ranger training. Okay, let's go for the middle red plate. A little hot.